Hello and welcome to today's lesson with Miss Elizabeth. I'm going to be teaching you on question tags. What is a question tag? A question tag is a short question at the end of a sentence. So you have a sentence and you have a short question at the end. Question tags are often used in spoken English and in informal written English. But in most cases, we use the question tags in spoken English. I'll show you 3 examples of question tags. She's pretty, isn't she? Isn't she is the question tag, while the sentence in this case is she's pretty. So take note that a statement must come before the short question that is added to it to make a question tag. All right. The next example, he is handsome. Isn't he? He is handsome in this sentence is the statement. Isn't he is a short question added to make it a question tag. Look at this example. You're going to Paris tomorrow, aren't you? You're going to Paris tomorrow is the sentence. Aren't you is the question tag. Most times, the question tag takes the form of the sentence. Isn't she? She's pretty. Isn't he? He's handsome. Aren't you? You are going to Paris tomorrow. So, in this lesson, I'm going to explain to you the basic rules in question tag formation, the meaning and use of question tags. Question tags in English language have 2 major uses. The first use that we're going to look at is to check if something is true. In this picture, you see a board meeting. Now, somebody may make a sentence such as, the meeting is at 10 o'clock, isn't it? The meeting is at 10 o'clock is the sentence. Isn't it is the question added to it. So, it is obvious that this person wants to check or confirm if truly the meeting is going to begin at 10 o'clock. So, question tags are used to check if something is true. Remember that question tags are majorly used in spoken English. So, after making a sentence such as the meeting is at 10 o'clock, you could add a question tag just to check if that thing is true. Isn't it? Yes. The second use of question tags is to ask for agreement. Here, you're not really asking a question, but you have an opinion and you want to ask for the support or agreement from another person. Look at this car. I could say, it's a beautiful car, isn't it? That means, in my opinion, this car is beautiful. But I want to confirm from you if you agree. It's a beautiful car, isn't it? So, this is another use of a question tag. Take note, the first use is to check if something is true. The second, just like we have in this sentence, is to ask for agreement. When to use question tags. The basic rule to the usage of question tags is that for an affirmative sentence, we use a negative question tag. There are many rules that guide question tags in English language, but the basic rule is that when you have a positive statement, you should use a negative question. Look at this example. The house is big, isn't it? The house is big is the positive statement. It is in the affirmative. That is the sentence in that construction. Isn't it is the negative question tag. Look at the verb is in the sentence becomes negative isn't. Isn't it in the question tag. They want to watch TV, don't they? The want to watch TV is the affirmative sentence. It is positive. Don't they is the negative question tag. As I said, this is the basic rule of question tags. For a negative sentence, we use an affirmative question tag. The exact opposite is always the case. For affirmative sentence, use a negative question tag. For a negative sentence, use an affirmative question tag. The house isn't big, is it? The house isn't big is a negative sentence. Is it? Is a positive question tag. They don't want to watch TV, do they? They don't want to watch TV is a negative question. Do they is the positive question tag. So by now you should, have found out that affirmative means the same thing as positive. My lovely students, indeed you have a lot to learn in this lesson. When not to use question tags. We do not use question tags at the end of a question. It is wrong to use a question tag at the end of a question. Remember that I told you that a question tag is used at the end of a sentence or statement. In this example, is the museum open today? Isn't it? This is wrong because the part in green, is the museum open today, is a question already. It doesn't require a question tag. Weren't they doing their homework? Were they? It is also an incorrect statement because when they're doing their homework is a complete question on its own. Now let's look at the forms of question tags. There are actually 4 rules that guard or that govern the form of question tag. The first one is auxiliary verbs. If the sentence has an auxiliary verb, repeat it in the question tag. If the statement contains an auxiliary verb, make sure that it is repeated in the question tag. Look at this example. Mark can play football, can't he? The auxiliary verb here is can, and we have the negative form in the question tag. Remember that an affirmative sentence will always take a negative question tag. That is why you have can't he as the question tag there. Mark can play football, can't he? I should call her, shouldn't I? I should call her, shouldn't I? Should is an auxiliary verb, and it is repeated in the question tag. Shouldn't I? So take note. The verb in the main sentence is often repeated in the auxiliary. Look at these other examples. You haven't fed the dog, have you? You haven't fed the dog, have you? Haven't there is the auxiliary verb in the negative. Remember that a negative statement will take a positive or affirmative question tag. You haven't fed the dog, have you? They weren't listening, were they? They weren't listening, were they? Weren't is the auxiliary verb in the negative. Were they were is the same auxiliary verb repeated in the question tag, but it is in the affirmative. Don't forget the first rule. That the negative sentence takes an affirmative question tag, and an affirmative sentence takes a negative question tag. There are no exceptions. There are little or no exceptions to this rule. Yes. So, the verbs in the auxiliary are usually repeated. And also take note that the subject determines what comes in the question tag. Rule 2. When be is used as a main verb in a sentence, what does the question tag look like? If the sentence has be as a main verb, it should be repeated in the question tag. Now let's look at this example. Mark is tall, isn't he? Is a form of the verb be, and it is repeated in the negative form in the question tag. Isn't. The film was good, wasn't it? Was is also repeated in the question tag. Wasn't. Let's look at turning a negative from negative to affirmative. You aren't well, are you? Remember that a negative statement will always take an affirmative question tag. Aren't is repeated as are in the question tag, but the verb form doesn't change. The next one. Claire wasn't at her desk, was she? Wasn't is a singular form of the verb be showing past tense and also in the negative. It is repeated in the question tag in the positive. Was she? Rule 3. In this case, there is no auxiliary verb, but we have a verb in the present simple. If the sentence doesn't contain an auxiliary verb, but the main verb is in the present simple tense, then the question tag takes a do. Look at this example. You like chocolate, don't you? Like is in the present simple. The question tag is negative, but it doesn't take the form of the verb anymore. It becomes don't you, don't. So, when there is no auxiliary verb and the main verb is in the present simple, remember to introduce the verb do. Mark works in London, doesn't he? Works is in the simple present tense, so it takes the verb do in the negative. Works takes the question tag, doesn't, because the verb in the main sentence is a singular verb. So doesn't is a singular form of do. Good. Let's look at other examples where you have a negative sentence and an affirmative question tag. You don't love me, do you? Don't is in a negative, but this present simple verb there is love. Do you is a question tag in the positive or the affirmative form. Claire doesn't live here, does she? Doesn't is also in the negative. The main verb in the present simple is live. So we have the question tag. Does she? Does is the affirmative form of that negative sentence. Now, when it comes to this rule, under rule number 3, one can also connect it to rule 1 that states that if the sentence has an auxiliary verb, repeat it in the question tag. It is obvious that don't is also an auxiliary, but that is the only way to show negativity in the sentence. So, one can also say that this verb has an auxiliary verb, but that doesn't change the fact that the main verb is in the present simple. So, you can follow any of the rules here, but I want you to remember that even if there's an auxiliary here, the main verb is in the present simple tense. So either of the rules that you apply will be correct. Rule 4. When there is no auxiliary verb in the past simple, the question tag takes the verb did, the modal did. Jane went to the party. Didn't she? If you look at this sentence very well, you discover that the verb went is in the past simple tense. So, since there is no auxiliary verb in the sentence, we introduced did. And remember the basic rule that a positive statement takes a negative question tag. So, that is why we have didn't. The next one. You worked yesterday, didn't you? Now, when turning negative or when we have a negative sentence, look at what the question tag looks like. You didn't clean your boots, did you? Didn't, clean are the verbs in that sentence. Didn't is helping the main verb clean. And you find that in the question tag, you have the positive form. Didn't becomes did. Claire didn't see me, did she? Didn't becomes did. So, when you have a verb in the past simple and there is no auxiliary verb there, you should introduce the word did in the question tag. These last two examples also reflect the first rule that if the sentence has an auxiliary verb, we repeat it in the question tag. Didn't is an auxiliary helping clean. So we repeat did you. So, my lovely students, you see that question tags are not so difficult to understand. I hope you've benefited from this video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in our next class. Bye for now.